So you can see from the slides, hopefully if you can see those, that we are from the University of Cumbria, and we all work in a Centre for Academic Practice Enhancement, which we call CAPE, which is great because we can be superheroes on a daily basis. My name's Isabel, I lead the team, and I'm joined by...
Do you want me to go first? I'm Andy White, I'm the Learning Technology Manager.
And I'm Amanda Chapman, I'm a Senior Academic Developer.
Fantastic. So we're going to talk to you today a little bit about the digital resistance that we experienced through the initial COVID time, and talk to you about how we then progress through to enhancing everybody's capability, and then a future pathway for change of where we're going to take it all next. So please feel free to stick things in the chat as we go along, things that are interesting, things you want to share, or questions you might have for us. So 1 to 5 there is a little bit of an overview, so you can see where we'll be taking you over the next 20 minutes. But if you could just maybe have a think and stick in the chat, if you can think about what is your PPE, and you can see that we've tried to make this fun. What are your post-pandemic essentials? So some people in the sector have been calling them the COVID keepers, the things that you want to carry on doing in your institution once we get back to a different type of normal. So from your perspective, you just want to write a couple of those. What are they for you in the chat? What's your PPE? And what do you hope to take away from the session? And then at the end, we'll pick those back up and see if we can close any of those off for you. So what's your PPE? What's your post-pandemic essentials? Stick them in the chat as we go along. So a bit about the context in which we were working when we cast our minds back to February, March of last year when COVID hit. We are a multi-site university. We were already working across 5 different campuses, which had lots of implications for travel, both for us as academic developers and learning technologists, but also for our students. Some of them went to Carlisle or Lancaster, depending on where they were. And staff obviously had to travel between those if they were teaching on large cohorts. But because we were multi-site, we already had video conferencing set up. So it was very common to be in a room where there might be 5 people with you in one room and 2 people on the screen. So that kind of custom and practice was already quite normal. We had Blackboard, I had it for about 17, 18 years. Lots of Pebble Pad usage across the university, the e-portfolio platform, and Padlet, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. If not, it's a bit like a Jamboard, a Google Jamboard. The work we do at Cumbria is very employability focused. We're very well known for health and education. We have loads of apprenticeships coming on board. And because we work in health and education, we have a lot of professional, regulatory and statutory bodies, the kind of the people that tell us how we have to do our degree programmes in order for the learners to get those accredited qualifications. In terms of digital/distance learning, we've got 330 degree programmes. Only 3 of those were pure distance learning at that time. And I bet in your organisations that number will have increased also. We had previously had some attempts to increase distance learning that had not gone as far as we had hoped they would. And so Andy set off on a project over a 3-year period, starting last year, to kind of accelerate some of the learning and understanding about distance learning as a project. And you can imagine how much Andy's going to tell you that work accelerated through the past year instead of it being a 3-year project. So there was quite a bit of resistance, as you can imagine. We are a rural university based in Cumbria and Lancaster. Lancaster has bits and bobs of connectivity issues. So we have a lot of students that do suffer from digital poverty, which you'll have read about from OFS papers, etc. We also have a lot of staff that come from industry, that come from practice, particularly our healthcare workers, who were not digitally savvy, and of course have been flown in to the higher education sector and not really known much about how to navigate or even use tools that would use as part of a physical learning environment. Most of our learners are mature, which is quite unusual, I think, for a university of our size. And we have very low staff turnover, which means that the general upskilling that you'd get from a constant flow of staff is not there as much as it might be. We do have some enablers, which we've got there. You're looking at the enablers, really. The 3 colleagues on the screen here were the enablers with our team. We ran regular CPD work, and we have an online toolkit on SharePoint, which one of our team will show you later on. And we did a lot of work about working from the centre outwards to make sure that we were collaborative in what we did to support people through that lockdown. So quick quiz for you. You just need a piece of paper, write 1, 2 and 3 on it. In lockdown 1, which was March time, by how much percentage did our usage increase for Blackboard, discussion boards on Blackboard, and our PebblePad logins? Pick a number for each of those, 1, 2 or 3. You don't have to write it in the chat, you can just put it on paper. And the answers are, ta-da! So interesting, isn't it, that the PebblePad, the Blackboard increase itself was only 30%, but discussion boards up so much, and PebblePad also increased. PebblePad over this year has grown, so this kind of year that we're in now, that's grown up to 50%. Yeah, we're now at 50% for that, and PebblePad is now at 180%. So you can see that people have sustained some of those changes. What you can see now on the screen is a timeline. It looks very much like a Padlet timeline, doesn't it? It's a timeline of where we've come in the journey. So giving you a bit of history there, I've told you a bit about what it was like pre-COVID at our university, and we'd started to think digitally in terms of getting this 3-year project up and running. And now what Andy and Amanda will do is they'll talk you through the rest of the timeline, taking us forward to the legacy that we hope to leave our colleagues with. So I'm going to pass to Amanda now to do the pirouette.
Thank you. So I'm talking about what is only last March. It feels like it was about 10 years ago, doesn't it? But it was literally only last March. And we're calling it the pirouette. I think everybody else calls it a pivot, but we're just being more dramatic and calling it a pirouette because it's more flamboyant that way, isn't it? So we had this kind of digital and environmental resistance. So some of the resistance wasn't people's own resistance. It's just the way we were kind of, where they were working and where they were living. And then when we went into that first lockdown, we recognised that we had some extra issues when people were working at home. So we had that kind of complication of people using university laptops and their own laptops. We had 2 versions, and we still do actually have 2 versions of Microsoft Office, which doesn't help with our CPD because we're constantly doing, if you've got 365, you do this. If you haven't, you do that. The piece for Big Institute of Arts, they've all got Macs. Nothing worked for them, particularly on Skype when we first started. That was particularly problematic with Macs, not so much now. And then we had also specific software that wasn't available off campus. So we had to kind of swoop in and give people some good alternatives there. And then you'll recognise this one, I'm sure, the work desk setups. We have a colleague in our team, in our Cape team, who has worked for the last 15 months on an ironing board. I'm on my dining room table as we speak here. So yeah, you know, I think that's common, isn't it, for a lot of people. So what we did do immediately is we devised some guiding principles for blended learning. We got those out very quickly, and we did a whole big array of CPD around that. For that kind of initial March to June, so we're still there for this. We had phenomenal take up, I think, for our CPD activities, which was brilliant to see. Lots of people attending things more than once as well, just to get their heads around things. So coming multiple times, which was nice. Our Teaching and Learning Fest last year, we concentrated on all about what's working in the blended environment and what we can start to kind of think about planning. We've got our academic toolkit that we use. That was a complete kind of go-to. Academic staff, really, that's the place that they go to for everything. And we've changed how we've worked that. We'll come on to that later, how we've kind of taken our own advice with our academic toolkit and our CPD. I'm sure you were the same. We did assessment changes where we had to, moved away from things that were physical exams, practical things, to online presentations, skills videos, timed coursework, that kind of thing. And we had a big raft of emergency academic regulations that we put in place as well. So it was a very busy period. And then what we decided to do as well was we decided to reduce people's availability, I suppose, of technology. So we told academic staff what they could use, which was our familiar platforms. So it was using Blackboard, it was using Padlet, Menti, those kind of things that we've used before. And what we were trying to do with that is to, if we make the technology decisions for people, then they can just think about their teaching and the content of what they're delivering, not how they're going to deliver it. And also, obviously, from the student side of things, that experience, it'll be the same in every module that they were picking up. So we were trying to limit that technology, and people were overwhelmed at that time, weren't they? So, yeah, we had that kind of issue with the parity of access. We didn't have any control over people's home computers and their network setup. And of course, everybody at the time was homeschooling. There was Amazon deliveries were going mad. You were getting your supermarkets delivered, all those kind of things. Everything like that was happening whilst you were trying to do your day job, sat on your kitchen table and on your. So it was a challenging time for everyone, and we recognised that. And I think the students did too. So what you can see here, we've got. We did a couple of surveys as so actually it kind of contradicted what the keynote said this morning, actually, I thought, because our online teaching and learning, the students felt was engaging. The two greens there are kind of definitely agree, mostly agree. So, you know, the balance is that they were very largely positive and supportive, and academic support was really key there as well. And I think our academic staff really worked hard to give the students plenty of academic support, lots of individual tutorials, lots of ringing, actually, if, you know, telephone, weird, but doing it that way, just so that they can talk to the students and actually keep them going in what was a challenging time. A lot of our students went on to placement, so we had a lot that were working in the NHS. So, you know, it was challenging. And then our staff response, so we had a massive upskilling, huge upskilling. People did become quite confident in what they were delivering quite quickly, but then we did have some kind of pockets of resistance as well. And I really like that second quote. I kind of hated it at first, but now it's not too bad, that kind of, you know, measured resistance.
And now it's over to me, I think. So thanks for that, Amanda. Yes, so we needed then to get ready for the start of the next academic year. So we looked at what we'd got and what we needed to do. We mentioned Padlet before, so we decided we'd get a university-wide license so we could have unlimited Padlets. And we invested in Blackboard Collaborate as a platform for delivering online classroom. We moved away from Skype for Business to Teams. Although Teams had already been planned to come in from IT, it was rolled out a lot earlier, a lot quicker than it had initially been planned. So to get ready, we had to do a lot of CPD during July and August. We had over 600 attendees, which is amazing, brilliant to get that number there. And we always concentrate, not just a little bit of how to use Collaborate and things like that, but also things like sharing good practice so that staff could see what other staff had been doing and how that worked, and taking the good points and looking at it from that perspective. So getting ready for the new academic year, we wanted to be a little less prescriptive even than the first lockdown and than the initial lockdown. So we're looking at widening the system options a little bit for staff, just easing off a little bit there. Still thinking that decision needed to be made really at subject and program level, so not just an individual sort of module or individual tutor, but it should be a bigger picture thing. So there's a consistency of approach from a student's perspective. And then also including in that would be the idea around a little bit more flexibility of whether should a session be recorded or live, and that side of things as well. Obviously, we're keeping hold of some of the emergency regs and some of these assessment changes which we'd used in the first initial lockdown. But one of the big things which was coming along in and amongst all this, which again I'm sure you're all familiar with, was the accessibility directive, where we had to start to put captions on. So we were telling staff that good practice would be to create narrated PowerPoints, for example, and then with the next breath telling them that they also need to add captions, which was a big off-put for it, you can imagine, for a lot of people. So we were very conscious that we needed to adhere to this, which is good practice anyway, the accessibility directive, but not to put staff off creating what could be interesting and useful resources as well. So partway through the semester, we took a student survey to get some feedback from them. And it was quite interesting. Well, remember that this was a semester where, or the start of the academic year, where students were expecting a bit to return to normality, a bit of more on campus than online, and how that sort of changed and became more and more online. So partway through the semester, we took this a little bit of a feedback from students. So this first one, to what extent you're enjoying your online sessions, and largely positive, as you can see. It was around the 75%, which I thought was quite encouraging there. And a couple more questions we had was around the accessibility of the session. So we were telling staff in the sessions about making the PowerPoints to be accessible, font sizes, amount of text on, that side of things as well. Being clear, repeating questions. And as you can see, again, a couple of really good positive bits of feedback from the student. That second one down there, how much interactivity that's been going on. So again, some nice feedback from the students midway through that first semester of 2021. Some positives from the students. Nice ones that they understood that it wasn't just them, as tutors were in a similar boat. They liked the pre-recorded content. It allowed them exactly what we would be saying. Students could work at their own pace. They can watch it when they want, as many times as they want. To collaborate was new to them. They liked the hand raising. They liked being able to do in the chat, the voting, the other options they could do as well. And other interactivity that might have been built in, such as quizzes in Blackboard. They liked all that side of things. From the negative side of it, again, not unsurprisingly, it was difficult to stay focused, to stay motivated. They preferred to be on campus. That's what they'd signed up for. They felt the online sessions were too long. And when we looked into some of that, they were just maybe trying to replicate what was an on-campus session, so a 2, 3, 4 hour session maybe, which online is not the best. And they identified that they were having network issues, machine issues, but also that the tutors might be as well, and that was affecting it. And also audio as well was kept popping up as being an issue. Some would say that it was harder to ask questions. And we've seen both, as you would with a lot of these. Some of the negatives are other people's positives and vice versa. So some of the students who said they really liked the pre-recorded stuff, others would have preferred it face to face. So we get that, but on the whole, it was a nice bits of feedback we got from the students. Staff responses here. We've done a couple of staff surveys. This was our last one, which happened earlier this particular semester. Won't read these out here, but with a couple of interesting ones. Particularly that first one, which is that rosy view of how teaching was, just thinking back only 12 months or more ago, and saying that actually, just to think back at some of that rooming issues, appropriate sizes for your groups and that, but it wasn't necessarily all roses, that type of thing. And maybe this could be a catalyst for change, for doing things differently. So we thought that was quite a nice little bit of feedback there. We'd done some staff surveys. We did one not long after lockdown, the project that Isabel talked about, which was to increase staff digital capabilities, just ahead of a pandemic coming in, because that sort of helped or gave it a real good boost. So we did a survey not long after we'd gone into lockdown, and we did one a year later. The left-hand side is 2020, the first of the surveys. So the right-hand one is the latest one we've done. We asked the same questions on both. We had slightly different questions because we were after different things on the other surveys. But for now, just the matching questions, you can see. So on the left-hand side, the answer is extremely confident, and as it goes towards the left, it's not at all confident. So the first question was about how confident are you in designing online digital activities to support outcomes? First one, well, hopefully you can see on the second, on the 2020, the recent one, we've got quite a nice shift towards more extremely confident, which is encouraging to see. And for the other two, the first one is about marking, it's about online assessments. We've had Turnitin for a long time, so staff are really quite used to using Turnitin, so it wasn't unsurprising for that first survey we got a very positive response. But also from that, you can hopefully see that it seems to have grown a little bit in confidence as well. And then the bottom one there is around supporting the students' digital capabilities. And again, I think there's been a shift towards a more extremely confident as well. But again, that's probably an area which we'll be developing further as well. So some quite good positive feedback there. So then in terms of the staff side of things, what we wanted to do, we're talking about that post-pandemic essentials. We wanted to ensure that we keep those, we retain those good practices, start to loosen off a little bit, widening the options of the systems and that staff could use again, but keeping it within that program level or subject level decision. So just balancing that consistency, that quality and flexibility, it's finding that right balance there and making sure that the staff can make use of what they've achieved and what's worked really well during COVID as well. We keep that going forward, along with other bits of evidence to make sure we have some effective blended learning approach going forward.
So just to finish off, I know Sarah's probably going to give us a warning, and we're just a couple of minutes over into our discussion time. What was originally niche, and if we all think back to the February, March of last year, it has now started to become a bit more normalised in our organisation because we've had this very close mapping and talking and surveying of staff and students as to what digital capabilities are needed. So that has been our pathway for change, really, is that close encounter and close conversations. So we have digital now embedded in the curriculum. We want that to continue further, as that's one of our PPEs going forward. Our own conference taking place next week is on sustaining development and digital learning in staff and student support. And that will be where we will be discussing as an organisation with the Vice-Chancellor of the things that staff have been doing that they want to keep and how the infrastructure is going to support them to do that. And that's, again, we talked about that penultimate bullet point there about it being a programme approach, not a top-down approach, because they are the experts. It's about putting them in the driving seat. So we've talked about digital skills, they're embedded in programmes. We have created a skills map for all programmes being validated where they have to demonstrate this, and that will eventually go onto a programme level Blackboard site so learners can see what the skills will be, and staff can make sure that they are ahead of their training to make sure that happens. Way more digital learning programmes coming forward now for validation. So we're setting up a group about what are the principles for distance learning, not just blended, but the distance, because they are very distinct, as I'm sure you would agree. And then to reinforce good practice, this CAPE TV channel, which I'll just very quickly show you before we finish off the discussion. We have this Academic Toolkit, which is a website we have for internal use only. And within that, we created a CAPE TV channel so that we record the sessions that we deliver for staff. So they can either come live or they can watch it on the CAPE TV when they're doing their ironing or whatever it is they're doing in the evening times. And of course, we now have a new horizon scanning remit within the team to make sure that we are abreast of what's happening in the sector and we can bring that back for learners and staff to use. So just a snapshot there of what our CAPE TV looks like. So if you go to our SharePoint site and click CAPE Academic Toolkit, you get this page here. These tiles move around. Of course, online delivery is the big one, so that's staying big for now. And you click in that, and then you get something that looks like this, which is our CAPE TV channel with our kind of narrated PowerPoints or our Loom or Panapto videos, whatever we've done that month, and people can go in and watch those. And we've had 30,000 views so far this year on that resource, and 9,000 views on our knowledge base, which is the kind of the written version that goes behind it in the background. So it's huge, big resource.